There's been a little bit of news in Blue Jackets land as Alexandre Texier is returning. We check in on Vladislav Gavrikov and Joonas Korpisalo over in Los Angeles, and it's World Championship season. So let's talk about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen to the day, every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube. Like and subscribe and get content delivered straight to your phone or laptop or TV or however you watch. Before we get started, I want to just let everyone know as well that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. So we're doing kind of a roundup episode today to kick off our Monday. Some stuff happened over the weekend, some minor announcements, nothing like too big and too extreme, but I wanted to kind of kick off by talking about the return of Alexandre Texier. They announced, I think at the end of last week, that they were expecting Alexandre Texier to return next season for the Blue Jackets. This is really good news for the Blue Jackets, but also I think for Alexandre Texier. He has missed the entirety of last season. He played in Zurich, had 35 points in 46 games, 5 points in 9 playoff games. He has been away from the NHL. He's been with the player assistance and substance abuse support system that they have, which is for anything from mental health to personal issues to addiction to medical. There's a bunch of reasons that he could have gone back to a little bit closer to home, and he did that. He, I guess, is doing better, which we love to see. And he's coming back to Columbus. He was in Columbus this weekend on a Zoom call with some of the media. Sounded really excited to be back. I wanted to kind of bring this up just because he was on pace for, well, he hit a season high in points for the Blue Jackets in his last season with the team. He had 20 points in 36 games, including 11 goals, and he did a lot of that from the fourth line. So he was really on track. And then he broke his hand or his finger, I think it was his finger. Went back to France for a little bit, and then they announced that for personal reasons, he wasn't going to be returning that season. So I guess that's when it started. Again, I don't want to speculate on what it is. If Texier wants people to know, he'll tell people. But I think this is really good news for him. I think once you leave the NHL, especially to go overseas, it's very difficult to get back. But it looks like he's coming back. His contract has slid, so I believe this is the upcoming season is the last year of that contract. This season, he was supposed to be an RFA after this season, I believe. So after the end of next season, he'll be an RFA, but they got his contract slid because he missed basically the entire season. But this is, I think this is good news for him. It's good news for the Blue Jackets. I think it gives them another NHL-ready player. The downside is it does create a little bit more competition for those. I mean, there's 12 forward spots, arguably 13 forward spots. When I did the math last week, I picked the top 13 forwards as Johnny Gaudreau, Patrik Laine, Jack Roslovic, Boone Jenner, Sean Corrali, Eric Robinson, Mathieu Olivier, Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, Emil Bemstrom, Igor Chinakov, Cole Sillinger. Add Texier to that mix. Add potentially players like Liam Foodie to that mix. Add guys like Trevor Kowalski to that mix. It's a there's a lot of players for not a lot of room. And, I guess the question is, do they extend Olivier or do they let him go? Because frankly, I think you get the same thing with Texier that you get from Olivier, just with a little bit more skill involved. So I don't know what the answer is there, but I'm glad to have Tex back. I liked him as a player a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential that we haven't seen yet. Like I said, 20 points in 36 games before he broke his finger. Hopefully he'll come back, maybe slot in a little bit higher than that fourth line. But I really like that fourth line of Robinson, Corrali, and Texier at the start of last season. So we'll see where that goes. In a minute, we are going to touch on the World Championships for a little bit. There's a couple of CBJ players that have been announced as going, and we are also going to talk about Los Angeles and how Korpisalo and Vladislav Gavrikov are doing over there. First, I've got to tell you all about Gametime, because I don't know about you, but I'm terrible at planning anything. So usually it's the day off, and I'm like, oh, we should go do this thing. Trying to find last minute tickets is a nightmare, so you need to use Gametime. You can get flash deals, last minute tickets, any kind of event, sport, music, comedy, theater. They've got images of seat views, which is really great because you know what your view is going to be like. Lower price guarantees, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. That's the Gametime guarantee. Get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. And tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, let's check in with the World Championships real quick, because there's a couple of players have been announced as going. If there's anyone else, I have missed them. But as of right now, I believe the only confirmed Blue Jackets players are Patrik, Laine, and Samuel Knazko. Laine obviously playing for Finland. Knazko will be playing for Slovakia. There might be a couple of others, but the Blue Jackets finished the season just so broken, and I think even the healthy Blue Jackets are looking forward to a break. I know they asked Johnny Gaudreau if he was going, and I believe he said no, probably because he wants to spend some time with his baby that he hasn't spent a ton of time with since, the regular season has been happening the entire time she's been born. So I'm not expecting any other big names. Like the only other potential guys would be like maybe Andrew Peak goes, but I don't know what the American team is like. I could see Andrew Peak going. He's, I think, one of the only healthy Blue Jackets right now that are kind of at that level. And you could see, I believe Texier, actually, speaking of Texier, is playing for France as well in this upcoming World Championships. So that'll be fun. I usually try and watch the World Championships. A little bit less fun for me personally, since Great Britain got kicked back down to the division below, but I'm still planning on watching. I'm going to be cheering for Finland and Slovakia and France, obviously, because those are the ones with the Blue Jackets on them. So just a quick check-in on that. I want to talk about the traded players. So mostly it's just Gavrikov and Korpisalo, but I want to check in with Gus Nyquist as well, who is healthy and playing pretty well, it seems like. In terms of how they're doing, the answer appears to be pretty good. Vladislav Gavrikov has played, I think, just a ton of ice time. He's played the 7th most of any King, 3rd amongst defensemen, but he has the best possession numbers of any defenseman. He's 7th on the team. Admittedly, he's at 48%, because I think the Kings have kind of been getting caved in possession-wise by the Oilers a little bit, and except for that top line of Kopitar, Iafallo, and Arvidsson, which makes sense. And then Kempe, Byfield, and Velarde are also faring pretty well as a line. But Gavrikov, doing pretty well, doing okay. He is not scoring a ton, which is to be expected, but he is contributing offensively, which we love to see. he will just very occasionally decide that he is an offensive defenseman, which is very funny. He has got 1 assist in these playoffs so far, 5 shots. But he's +2. So he's doing okay. Hasn't taken any penalties, which is impressive considering how all of the penalties happened in the last couple of games. But he's doing pretty well. I think the impressive one for me is Joonas Korpisalo, who is killing it. He might be one of their one of their top 3 players in this playoff series. Like, he's been phenomenal. The Kings are up 2-1 in the series. Korpisalo is 2-1. He's got a .931 save percentage and a 2.53 goals allowed against average. That's incredible, honestly. Like, and he did similar things in the playoffs last year, so maybe he just needs a big stage to step up to. He has allowed 3 goals, and 2 goals, so 8 goals total over the 3 games. Had a .925 in the first game, a .917 in the second game, and a .950 in the third game. So, like, he's doing basically everything he can for this team. Sometimes they're not scoring enough for him, but they are. Like, Korpisalo is, I don't know where he's at in terms of the other goalies in the playoffs, but I feel like a 931, like, that's got to be pretty hard to beat. Let's find out. I'm just really glad that he's doing well, is the thing. It's kind of what I expected. Especially, going from, he had decent numbers on a very bad Columbus team. So going to a significantly better LA team, it makes sense that he is doing very well. In terms of goalies that have played more than 1 game, Korpisalo is 4th. So the only goalies that have better numbers than him, Akira Schmidt, who played 1 game, so I assume those numbers will come back down to earth pretty soon. Philip Gustafsson in Minnesota has a .961. Igor Shesterkin has a .950. Ilya Sorokin has a .942. And then there's Joonas Korpisalo with a .931. The Edmonton goalie, Stuart Skinner, has a .900 save percentage, which is still very good. But I'm glad to see that our boys are doing well and doing us proud. I always feel like it's not stress, but I always get worried that when we do like one of these big deadline trades, that it'll happen like the Nick Foligno trade, where he was injured basically immediately and then didn't do anything except fight Corey Perry in the playoffs. And no, I'm like, no, I feel validated by this. Yeah, we got a first round pick and it was worth it because Korpisalo and Gavrikov have both been really, really good for this team. Gus Nyquist, who I forgot was playing, is currently tied for the lead in points with Minnesota. He's got 4 assists in 3 games. Hasn't scored yet, but he's healthy. He's up. He's ready to go. He's doing good, which, again, really, really great to see. Like I said, I hadn't realized he was healthy, but it's great to see that he is. This is the Wild made out like bandits in that trade. Honestly, if this is the stuff that they're going to get from Gus Nyquist, over a point per game at, what is he, 33 years old? Like, they're winners. He is, gosh, I don't know. I want to say 30. Yeah, he's 33 years old, and he's over a point per game in the playoffs. They traded like a 6th round pick for him. So they're winning. But also Gus Nyquist is winning. So I'll accept it. So great to see our guys doing well on playoff teams. Would have been nice to have that playoff success here, but I guess we just keep cheering for Los Angeles and Minnesota. In a minute, I've got a couple of mailbag questions for you. So we're going to get into that in just a second. let's talk about injuries again. Because the first question is, now that I've done all of my math about injuries, etc., if I could have picked one player to not be injured, who do I think would have made the biggest difference? And like the easiest one for me, I think, is Zach Werenski. You gain like if he had a really hot start, so he had 8 points in 13 games and 3 goals in 13 games. So like that stats out to 19 goals on the season. So we missed out 16 goals and 42 points from Werenski. So that's what, 28 assists. So, that's where the Laine goals are coming from and the Jenna goals are coming from, is those Werenski passes. He was the biggest loss for me, was Zach Werenski. I know that his contract feels huge, and yes, is he overpaid? Probably, but he's still a very good defenseman in this league. He's still a legitimate number one defenseman, and I think this team was worse without him. Like you look at, obviously having Laine healthy would have been a huge difference, but I think for me, Werenski is the one. If this team can keep Werenski healthy next season, like that's the ideal, So is that a boring answer? Maybe, but that's my answer. The next question: if I could undo one trade from the last couple of years, which trade would I, if any? Oh man, let's take a look at Blue Jackets trades, because I've forgotten every single trade that's happened. Honestly, if I could undo any trade, it would be the Oliver Bjorkstrand trade. Like that's just, I get why it had to happen, and I understand that, that's how this business goes. But man, it sucks seeing him on another team. I think that's definitely it. I think I'm just flipping through the last few years of trades, but that feels like, to me, that's the one. Is the Bjorkstrand trade. I miss him, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. We're going to finish off like we started the episode, just with a little bit more Texier talk. Obviously, it's mega early. What line combos would I like to see him tried on? I think that Robinson, Kuraly, Texier line feels like a no-brainer to me in terms of having a bottom, a bottom six line combo that's a pain in the butt to play against, can contribute offensively. But I would like to see Texier get a little bit more ice. I think Texier could be a solid middle six guy. So maybe so extremely early line combinations. I'd like to see Gaudreau, Laine, a center. So let's go ahead and pencil in whoever the Blue Jackets pick with their first round pick. If we go ahead, Adam Fantilli, Leo Carlson, whoever. Gaudreau, draft pick, Laine, and then I'd like to see Johnson and Marchenko with a center, maybe Jenna in there, and then maybe Texier, Roslovic, and Chinikov on that third line, and then I guess Texier, Kuraly, Robinson. You've got Sillinger as the extra body, but I don't know. This is tricky. I forgot that they were probably going to be adding a forward, but then there's what if Carlson goes back to Sweden or Fantilli goes back to Michigan, and then I feel like you could probably just slot Sillinger into a spot. But I'd like to see Roslovic and Chinikov with Texier could be fun. I think he adds a little bit of snarl to that line. But I also wouldn't hate Robinson, Kuraly, Texier. We're going to be doing double episodes again this week, guys, which is very exciting for you, very exciting for me, a person that has a lot to say. And so today we're going to have another episode coming out kind of this evening, this afternoon, this evening. We're going to be talking all about Gus Nyquist, who we just touched on briefly in this episode. So we're going to be doing his season review before his CBJ season was cut short. So that is later on today. And then tomorrow we're going to check in on the Blue Jackets CHL prospect and how they're doing. I believe all but I think 2 series are still going on. So we'll check in with those guys. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find this podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube. We are, I believe, 1 subscriber away from the next milestone, which is very exciting for me. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, please feel free to do so. Hit the little bell button below this video, and you'll get notified when new episodes go live. If you're an everydayer, thank you. I appreciate you. If you are not an everydayer yet, I also appreciate you. And until tomorrow, or until later today, make sure you stay locked on.